Good evening, everyone. We're coming out of Lag BaOmer. It's now the following day. I haven't counted yet, so I don't want to say the count yet. Baruch Hashem, we are on the Lamed Gimel Amud Bet on Lag of Masechet Rosh Hashana. There's a Mishnah at the very end of we're concluding the Masechet, and at the end of the Masechet, we are now talking about the Shofar blasts, how the blasts of the Shofar should sound. Tekiah Teruah, Shvarim. That's what the next two pages are. The finale of the Masechet talks about that. So we have a Mishnah that talks about Seder Tekiot, which means now we're going to teach you about the order of the sequencing of how to blow the shofar and when to blow what. Okay, so let's begin. We are picking up in the art scroll on 33b1. And if you're looking on the screen, I'm going to share my screen. It's a Mishnah. Here we go. Mishnah here on 33b. Okay, here we go. Seder Tekiot. The following is the order of the blasts of the shofar. Okay, we're now starting fresh. I'm going to give an outside explanation so that when we go inside, we'll understand it. Seder Tekiot. Shalosh, shel, shalosh, shalosh. Should I say that fast? Shalosh, shel, shalosh, shalosh. 3 sets of 3. Okay, it's 3 sets, and each one is of 3. That's why it's shalosh shel, shalosh shalosh. Each one has 3. Okay, it's a little bit saying it in a way of 3 sets of 3. Okay, which adds up to how many blasts do you have? 9. Okay, that's what we're going to end up saying. And the Mishnah right now is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through the Mishnah, then we're gonna get into the Gemara of explaining what that means. I'll just say outside so that we have some frame of reference. When we say 3 of 3, the 3 sets of 3, every set of 3, there's going to be a main thing in the middle. That main thing in the middle is different opinions of what it should sound like. But that main thing in the middle, for argument's sake, let's call that a teruah. The teruah has, Yosef, you came from the screen to in person. Look at that. You have 3 sets of 3. The thing in the middle is called a teruah. Then every teruah will have a tekiah before it and after it. What does that mean? 3 sets of 3. It means tekiah, teruah, tekiah, and you do that times 3. That's what we mean by 3 sets of 3. The tekiah at the beginning and end is very simple, and the thing that's in the middle is called a teruah. There's 2 opinions. We're going to see in this Gemara. There's 2 opinions as to how it should sound like. Should it sound like 9 small sounds like or should it sound like 3 intermediate sounds like do like that? That what we do is we call each of those things something else so that we don't get lost in the words. The one that's the little dots, the 9 shorter ones, that's what we call teruah. And the 3 intermediate ones, that's what we call shavarim. So our Mishnah tells us right now, shalosh, shel, shalosh, shalosh. You're supposed to blow the shofar 3 times, and 3 sets of it. And the way it works is tekiah, which is a simple do. Then you put something in the middle, and then it ends up with a do, and you do that 3 times. Okay? Now, intro and a conclusion, and then the thing and the body.
We don't know what exactly should be.
In the body, what we're going to say is that there's 3 opinions. It's either going to be a shavarim, which is do. Let's say it was that. So we would do 9 because intro, do, shavarim, do, then outro, do that times 3, so you get to 9. That's if the middle is shavarim. Now the other option is in the middle you have teruah, which is do. Now, if that's what's in the middle, then we should do the same thing. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah. And do that times 3. So that would be 9. And then the other option is maybe it's a combo. Maybe it's do, as such. And then what you would have to do is you would have the intro, you would have that double, and then with an outro. And that's what we're going to expand in the Mishnah in the next couple of dots. So right now, what you should keep in mind as we're going in the Mishnah is everyone agrees what a tekiah is. A tekiah is the simple one that's before and after, the intro and the outro, we'll call it. It's simple, it's 1 note straight, Everyone agrees that there has to be one before and after. What's in the middle, there's different opinions. And now what we're going to also talk about, in addition to how you do it, the structure, is also how long each one should be. What's the minimum length for each one? And what's the minimum length for the thing that's in the middle? And what's the minimum length for the tekiyot that are before and after? That's what our Mishnah is going to do. Okay, ready? Let's do it again. If you're looking at the art scroll, it's 33b1. On the screen, I have it. Said there, tekiyot, shalosh shel shalosh shalosh. You have 3 sets of 3. Shi'ur tekiyah kishalosh teruot. The measurement, the length of time of a tekiyah should be equal to 3 teruot. So you imagine, let's say for a second, let's go with the opinion that says, and let's just see it. Shi'ur teruah kishalosh yevavot. And the shi'ur of a teruah is like 3 whimpers. What's a whimper? Like that. Sorry, I'm going to deeper. It didn't go deeper. So you have those 3 whimpers. So a shivarim, or sorry, a teruah is like 3 of those. So each yivava is a whimper. It's the smallest sound you can make. Rashi explains this. It's the smallest sound you can make. So a teruah is 3 of those sounds in terms of volume and measurement, length of time, and a tekiah is 3 of those. So how many whimpers is it in a tekiah? 9. Very good. So if you had to measure on a watch, how much is? Maybe it's less than a second even. So let's call it a second for argument's sake, but it could be less than a second. That would mean that your teruah should be 3 seconds, and based on this, your tekiah, which is like shalosh teruot, it sounds like it should be 9 seconds. Now we're going to see that's not actually what the Gemara is going to change the understanding, but that's how we're reading it as of now. That's the first rule of the Mishnah. First rule of the Mishnah is, actually it's the first and second rule. First rule is how many? 3 sets of 3. The second rule is how long is each one? And it tells us, the formula tells us that tekiah is like 3 teruot, and a teruah is like 3 yevavot. Yevavot is the smallest one, smallest sound you can make. Now, rule number 3, Tekiah barishona umashach b'shniya. We've seen this before. Remember how we said the tekiah is the outro and it's also the intro? It's the intro and it's the outro. So what happens if you're doing the outro of the first set of 3 and you roll through that stop sign and you go into the intro of the next tekiah? So you get the right amount of time, but you don't break in the middle. Tekiah barishona umashach b'shniya. You blew the shofar as your outro, and you're doing your tekiah of your outro of your first set, and then you're moving into the intro of the next set, and you don't break in between. En biado ela achat. You only did 1 tekiah, which means all you did was your outro of your first set of 3. Make sense? So what we're learning now is that if you do a tekiah and it even has the length of 2 tekiyot, it only counts as 1. Correct. We've seen this line before. The reason we've seen this line, it came up, I think it came up in 2 other sections where we're talking about how if you only heard the first half of something, you should fulfill your obligation. Well, why can't you cut it in half? And we said, okay, you can't cut it in half. Okay, yeah, that was something else that we spoke about. Now, I think this is the 4th rule. Mi sheberach ve'achakach nintmana lo shofar. Let's say someone prayed musaf. He didn't have a shofar. Then after the fact, the shofar showed up. The guy prayed in the morning. He didn't have a shofar. They prayed in Musaf. They didn't have a shofar. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden, they finally, a Chabad guy comes and he says, oh, I had a shofar. So now he's going to blow a shofar. So the question is, what do you do? So the Mishnah tells us, Tekiah umeria v'Tekiah shalosh pa'amin. You go through the order of doing Tekiah Teruah Tekiah 3 times. You do 3 sets of 3. You confused face? Why? Correct. It is the exact same seder as the original one. So what exactly is this line teaching me? Oh, so there's really 2 things you could say. Number 1, you could just say that you lost out because you didn't do in the bracha, but it's the same, right? Even though you're not doing this as part of your tefillah, you do the same thing as someone who is doing it as part of the tefillah. Another thing that it could be saying here is saying you don't need to pray again. Because what is it telling you? It's telling you if you prayed and you didn't have your shofar, You prayed your musaf. Now you found your shofar. What does it say? It says, just blow the shofar. Meaning, you might have thought that you would have to pray the musaf a second time. Oh, I prayed musaf without a shofar, but now that I had the shofar, maybe I should pray musaf again? No, you just blow the shofar. To your point, you do the same as before, but those are the two ways of saying it. No, first one is it's just stating the obvious and saying you don't have to do anything differently. You do it exactly the same, or it's saying that you don't need to pray a second time. Yeah.
It also comes to teach that blowing the shofar in itself is just a mitzvah by itself, regardless of your prayer. Meaning, if you didn't pray and you just blew the shofar, and you fulfilled your.
Very good. So Andy's saying, like, is this rule teaching us that the mitzvah of Tekiah Shofar is independent from the mitzvah of Tefillah? And that's what you're learning. Now, it was established to be part of the Tefillah. And why was it established? There's many opinions that we'll see tonight that it was established as such because we have Malchiot, Zichronot, Shofarot. You have those three sections. So you want 3 sets of 3, one for each section. So that's where a lot of this comes from. You have those 3 sets of 3. That's how it was established. But to your point, it's an independent mitzvah. It's independent, and Chachamim put them together, but they're independent. So because of that, that's exactly what the Mishnah is saying. If you prayed and then your shofar came, you could blow the shofar, you didn't lose out, and you do exactly the same as before, and you also don't need to pray again. That's exactly correct.
For me, I think it was Tekiah Rosh Hashana. I leave early because my kids were like not letting me pray, so I prayed Shofar, missed Musaf, and then I went to the park next to my apartment, and I think Louis Abrani's son came and blew shofar.
You blew the shofar.
200 people. He was blew it for everybody.
Yeah. Did you pray Musaf?
No, I didn't. I had to leave.
You didn't pray Musaf.
Didn't let me pray.
Yeah. So that's something that okay. So there's an example that you're in the Bet Knesset. You're there for Shacharit. You had to leave. You couldn't stay for Musaf or for Shofar. And later, you hear the Shofar. What our Mishnah is taking it a step further by saying even if you prayed the Musaf, you went home, and while your kids were whatever, now you prayed the Musaf by yourself without the Shofar, also, right? You shouldn't say, no, I already did it, I don't need to add. No, you still have to do the Musaf Shofar. Okay? That's what I think is the 4th rule of the Mishnah. And now the 5th rule of the Mishnah, let me share my screen. Kishem shishaliach tzibur hayav, kach kol yachid v'hayachid chayav. Now we're learning a law that's not unique to Rosh Hashanah, but it has to do with any Amidah, with any Shemona Esrei Bracha. What we say is, the same way that a Shliach Tzibur needs to pray, so too all of the individuals need to pray. Meaning, just because he's praying doesn't mean you don't need to. He's going to pray, and he's fulfilling the obligation for anyone who does not know how to pray, or is not praying. He's doing it for them. But if you know how to pray, you have to pray. And especially nowadays that we have Sidurim, that's why we don't just rely on the Shliach Tzibur. The job, this isn't a Rosh Hashanah law. This is a law of Chazanut. You have the Shliach Tzibur who is going to have in mind people who don't know how to pray. People who don't know how to pray, they listen to him, they answer Amen, and they did their obligation. But if you know how to do it, that's what our Mishnah is saying is Kishem. Just as the Shliach Tzibur is chayav, each and every individual has to pray for themselves. Rabban Gamliel Omer, Shliach Tzibur motzi et harabim midei chavatan. Rabban Gamliel adds something that says, the prayer leader fulfills the obligation on behalf of others. So this is something that when we get into the Gemara, we'll expand and see what exactly the machoket between these two opinions are. This is the first thing of the Mishnah. So to recap, what are the 5 points of our Mishnah? Who wants to say 5 points in order? Point number 1.
There are 3 sets of 3.
Okay, so how many blasts of shofar do we have to do? That's the first law, which it says 3 sets of 3. And as I explained, it's Tekiah, something that's in the middle, which we'll call Teruah, and then Tekiah. Okay? 3 sets of 3. That's the first law of the Mishnah. The second law of the Mishnah, what is it?
Tekiah is 3, Teruah is 3.
So now, this one is how long each of those units should be. Tekiah is like 3 Teruot, and a Teruah is 3 Yevavot. And what we're saying, Yevavah is the smallest amount of sound that you could make. That's a Yevava. So what's a Teruah? Same length of that. You could call that 1 second. It's about a second, maybe even a drop less. Okay? And the next rule is that if you extended your Tekiah, your outro Tekiah, right? You know what I mean by outro Tekiah, right? If you extended that and then you rolled into the intro of the next one, it doesn't count. It only counts as one. The fourth law is that if you prayed Musaf without the shofar and then get your shofar afterwards, you need to blow the shofar, the same as anyone else. Even though it's not part of the tefillah, you still need to do it. And the last has to do with the laws of Shliach Tzibur, which we'll come back to, that just as the leader is obligated to pray, so too every individual is obligated to pray, whereas Rabban Gamliel says, no, the leader can fulfill the obligation for others, even if they know how to pray. This is something that we're going to expand upon when we get into it, okay? So now, we're not going to, the first rule of the Mishnah that tells us how many, we're not going to go into that yet. We're going to jump to the second part of the Mishnah that starts talking about the length, right? The length. We said Shi'ur Tekiah Kishalosh Teruot. 1 Tekiah is like 3 Teruot, and Shi'ur Teruah Kishalosh Yevavot. And the Shi'ur of a Teruah is like 3 Yevavot. Now here we go. Our Mishnah is going to quote a Braita. V'hatanya, we learned in a Braita something that doesn't say the same thing. What does it say? Shi'ur Tekiah Ki Teruah. Our Mishnah tells us that the Shi'ur of a Tekiah is like a Teruah. What did our Mishnah say? It's like. Nope. Our Braita says that. Our Braita says 1 Tekiah is equal to 1 Teruah. Our Mishnah said 1 Tekiah is equal to 3 Tekiyot. Hold on a second. Teruot. Okay. Mishnah. Okay, this is where if we need something, we'll make a chart. Okay, so we'll do Mishnah. Or we'll do it like this. Tekiah. Mishnah. Baraita. So let's do this. 1 Tekiah is equal to, what does our Mishnah say? Very good. 3 Teruot. And 1 Teruah is equal to 3 Yevavot. Or let's just call it a whimper. Good? What does our Braita now say? Our Braita, let's read it again. Our Braita says, Shi'ur Tekiah Ki Teruah. A Tekiah is like a Teruah. So 1 Tekiah is equal to what? 1 Teruah. So that is contradiction. So our Mishnah says it's like 3 Teruot, but the Braita says it's 1 Teruah. Which one is it? Okay, that's what the Gemara's question is. So far, so good. How long is the Tekiah? Our Mishnah says it's 3 Teruot. The other one says, the Braita says it's 1 Teruah. What does the Gemara answer? Amar Abaye, there's no issue. They're talking about different things, though, but they're saying the same thing. Tana Didan, the author of our Mishnah, Kachashiv Tekiah de Kuluhu Bave, Utrot de Kuluhu Bave. The author of our Mishnah is telling you the intros of every Tekiah is equal to the middle of those 3 sets. So when it says a Teruah is equal to 3 Teruah, a Tekiah, when it says 1 Tekiah is equal to 3 Teruot, what it's really saying is the intro Tekiah is equal to the middle. All 3 of those Teruot, the intro Tekiah, all 3 of them, is equal to what's in the middle, the Teruah. The Gemara is trying to make it the same thing. So what is it saying? It's using like Tekiah, meaning all of your intros are equal to all of what's in the middle of the Teruah. It means 1 Tekiah is equal to 1 Teruah. What you're adding here is that you need to do 3 Teruot. Because that's, remember, when it says shalosh, 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 3 sets of 3, you're doing 3 Teruot. And what our Mishnah is telling us, the shiur of the Tekiah is equal to 3 Teruot, meaning when you add up all of each Tekiah is equal to its respective Teruah. That's the same as what the Braita says. So right now, the Gemara wants to say that everyone agrees the Tekiah is the same as the Teruah. Fine. But look at this. One more time. I'll read the answer. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Tana Didan, the author of the Mishnah, Kachashiv Tekiah Teruah Baveh. He is saying, look at the Tekiah, all of the Tekiyot, all three of them, Utruot Teruah Baveh, and the Teruot of all of them. I add up all of the Tekiyot, that's equal to all of the Teruot, meaning 3 Tekiyot is equal to 3 Teruot. Tana Bara Kachashiv Chad Baba Betulo. Whereas the Braita is just talking about within one set of 3, its Tekiah is equal to its Teruah. So far, we want to say how there's no contradiction. However, the next line of the Braita says the following: Shi'ur Teruah Kishalosh Yevavot. Our Mishnah says, you know what? Okay, I want to go back. Yeah, I want to go back to here and say this is 3 Yevavot. Okay, I actually want to leave it as Yevavot because the Shiur Teruah Kishalosh Yevavot. This is a quote of our Mishnah that says the Shiur of a Teruah is 3 Yevavot. Ve'atanya, but the Braita says something else. What does the Braita say? Shiur Teruah Kishlosha Shevarim. The Shiur of a Teruah is equal to 3 Shevarim. So this first line, we forced in an answer to say, really they're saying the same thing. How? Because when he says 1 Tekiah is equal to 1 Tekiah, 1 Teruah, that's what he means. When the Mishnah said 1 Tekiah, really means the first Tekiah of the set will equal to what's in the middle of the set for all 3 sets. That's how he wants to say it. So we want to see they're saying the same thing. But the second line of the Mishnah, they're clearly saying something different. Because the Mishnah says a Teruah is equal to 3 Yevavot, which is tiny, whereas the Braita says 1 Teruah is equal to 3 Shevarim, which is intermediate. So
the Gemara define the length of the Shevarim in Yevavot.
No, and that's what we're about to do right now. So the Gemara has not defined it yet. Amar Abaye Beha Vadai Pligi. They are definitely arguing about this. Why? Because of exactly what I'm saying. Ichtiv Yom Teruah Yiyeh Lachem. That we're going to look at these psukim. Okay, this is in Yom Teruah Yiyeh Lachem. Is in Parashat. Is it there? These people are gonna move. Okay, it's in Parashat Pinchas. In Parashat Pinchas, it says, "Uvachodesh hashivi'i be'echad lachodesh." 7th month, first of the month. What is that? 7th month, first of the month. It's Rosh Hashana. Mikra kodesh yelachem. It's a holy day. Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu. Don't do work. Yom teruah yiyeh lachem. It should be a day of teruah, of blasts. Okay, now, how do you translate this word teruah? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here and I'm going to look at, do we have translation? Do we have an unculus? Do they have unculus here? Does anyone know?
They do. Yeah, they do.
Okay, I have to find it. You know where? Onculus. Onculus is with an O. Okay, not here. So maybe it's not commentary. Maybe it's something else. Midrash, halacha, targum. So click on targum. Targum, onkulus, numbers. Here we go. I want to see it in Hebrew though. Uviarcha shevi'ah, bechad li'archa, on the 7th of the month. Here we go. La tabedu, yom yababa yeheh lechon. When it says Yom Teruah Yiyeh Lachem, it should be a day of a Teruah. The Aramaic translation of Teruah is Yababa. This is Yevava. Okay? Yom Yevava Yiyeh Lachon. It should be a day of Yevava. Okay, so now what? The Torah tells us that it's a day of Teruah. Okay, I want you to follow the chain. This is very important. I don't know what a Teruah is, so I look at Onkulus. Onkulus calls it a Yevava. What is a Yevava? What does that word mean? Back to the Gemara. Okay? Umitargaminan, we translate it as Yom Yevava Yeh Lechon. It should be a day of Yevava. What is a Yevava? Uchtiv be'emed Sisra. It says in the book of Judges, in the book of Shoftim, it says by the mother of Sisra, who I'll explain, Be'ad hachalon nishkefa, she is looking out of the window, Vateyabev em Sisra, and the mother of Sisra is Vateyabev. Teyabev is the same word as Yevava. And what does this sentence mean? So let's go ahead and look at it. Open a new tab. Here we go. This is a story of there was a general that was against the Jewish people. It was anti-Semitic, let's call it anti-Semitic, fighting against us. And the Jewish people were fighting against Sisera. Sisera was very powerful, killed many Jewish people, killed many people. He was like a army general, very powerful. There's a whole long story. It's a very fun story, actually, that Yael is the name of a woman who kills him, right? Because he's coming after the Jewish people, and then there's a war, and he escapes the war. And Sisera, as he's escaping, he sees some woman, and he says, "Please, let me come inside and hide." And she's like, "Sure, of course, no problem." She comes inside, and she knew, she wasn't Jewish, but she knew who he was. She knew what he was doing to the Jewish people, and like had to help the Jewish people out. She gave him something to eat, to drink. He fell asleep. Boom, killed him.
Warm milk thing in the head, or is that before?
Correct. Yeah, puts the peg right in his head.
Yeah.
Kills him. Exactly. That's exactly the story. We could read it. It's a book in Shoftim, chapter 5. Chapter 5 of Shoftim. You know the story? The fun story.
Warm milk.
She gave him warm milk. That's exactly right. Okay. That's how the story goes. Ma'im sha'al chalav natana. He asked for water. She gave him milk. Then yadala yatet tishlachna. Her arm sent forth a peg, a nail. B'minan lahamut amelim, etc., etc. Says he killed her. Ben raglea kara nafal shachav. He fell. Ben raglea kara nafal. Ba'asher kara sham nafal shadud. He died there. And then it talks about his mom. His mom was looking out of the window. The mother of Sisera is looking out of the window. And she is crying. She's there and she's crying. Where is my son? Why isn't he home yet? Why are they late? Why are they delayed? The answer is because he's dead. But this is like written as a poem, and it says that she's looking out the window. Vateya bev. What does vateya bev mean? So it could be that she was sighing. Could be that she was whimpering. Was it just like, "Oi, where is he? Oi, where is he?" Or is it like like that? We're not sure which one it was. So now you see where the Gemara is making this connection. It says by the mother of Sisera, she's sitting by the window, waiting for her son, and she is doing a yevava. What is a yevava? Mar savar ganoche ganach. One says she's sighing like, "Ay," like that. Umar savar yalule yalil. The other one says that she's whimpering like, like that. You're not sure which one it is. So that's why you have one opinion saying it's a teruah, which is a whimper. The other one is saying it's more of a sigh. Exactly. It's more of an exhale. Right? It's not a cry, but it's like that. And that is called a shivarim. So now you see our Gemara says, go look at this chart again. When one opinion says, hey, a teruah is 3 yevavot, and the other one says, no, it's 3 shivarim, they're using different words because they are viewing that teruah as different sounds. The one that says shivarim views it as 3 sides. Ganuche ganav, oi. So that would be do. Whereas 3 yevavot is 3 sets of a whimper, and each one has a few in it. So it's like, like that. And that's why this one says it's 3 yevavot. So they could be talking about, potentially they could be talking about the same time limit, but now what you're learning is what is in the middle of your sandwich. What is your teruah? According to the Mishnah, it would be a yevava. It's a cry, or the whimper. Whereas according to the Braita, it's actually a sigh. Very good. So the chain. What is the chain? It's a very fun chain, and it should be clear. The Torah says that on Rosh Hashana you should blow the shofar. How does it say it? It calls it a Yom Teruah. What does Unkelus translate Teruah as? Yevava. So we want to know what that word is. So where do we go? We open up the Tanakh. We go to the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges, chapter 5, line 28. And that word Yevava is used in the text. And what is it used in the text as? It's what Sisera's mother was doing as she was waiting for her son, realizing that he may not come home. And was she sighing or crying? Machloket. Our Mishnah that says she was whimpering, she was crying. The Braita says no, she was Yishivarim, she was actually sighing. You're going to see later in the Gemara, might be the combo. Okay, we're not up to there yet, but that's where we are now. That's what you see that our Mishnah, the Gemara tells us, the Bari tells us that our Mishnah and the Braita argue. Okay? Good? Good. Good. We're making good progress. Let's go. Tanu Rabbanan, now that you quoted this Braita, we're going to now go and read this entire Braita, and there's going to be a lot that we're going to learn out. Here's what we have to learn out, okay? And I want you to learn the pieces. We'll probably make a chart out of it. Okay. We need to learn how many teruot there are. You tell me, how many teruot are there? Three. And then we also need to learn that with every teruah comes two tekiah, one before, one after. We need to learn this. Now, where are you going to learn this from? The Torah does not say it. So you're going to learn it out by making it a comparison, by making a hekesh or a gezerah shava to one of two sections of the Torah. Either the Rosh Hashana section is going to be somehow linked to the Yovel section, which happens to be the Parasha of the week of Emor. Behar, Parasha Behar, Parasha of the week. You link it there, and then you make some comparisons because there's a Shofar on Yom Kippur of Yovel. Or you're going to connect it to Parasha Ba'alotcha that talks about that they would blow the trumpets when it would be time to travel and be time of going to war, and it would then tell us how you have to blow the blasts of the trumpets. So we don't know what you're supposed to do on Rosh Hashanah unless you fill in the blanks and fill in the picture by connecting it to another section of the Torah. And when you do that, you're now going to learn that there should be three things in the middle, three teruot, with a tekiah beforehand and a tekiah after. That's going to be the structure of this Braita, okay? Hang in with me. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of drashot, but we're going to do it together. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Minayin sheva shofar. The first question is, who said you even have to blow the shofar? Because I showed you the pasuk. Let me show you the pasuk in Pinchas again. The Pinchas, what does it say? It says, "Uvachodesh shvi'i v'echad hachodesh, Yom Teruah yeh lachem." It should be a day of blasts. Who said it should be with the shofar? Maybe it should be with a trumpet. Maybe it should be with something else. So that's the first question of the Gemara. How do you know with what you're supposed to do it? Tamun lomar ve'avarta shofar teruah. Because you make a connection to the story, to the section of Yovel. This is the parasha of the week. This is in Parashat Behar. Parashat Behar, it says that on the 50th year, on the Jubilee year, Ve'avarta shofar teruah. You take a shofar and you walk around and you blow the shofar on Yom Kippur. Uses the word shofar. Oh, okay, so the Gemara says, Ein li ela ba'Yovel. Rosh Hashana minayin. That's talking about Yovel. That's not talking about Rosh Hashana. How do you know that you have to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashana? Tamun lomar b'chodesh hashvi'i. The section in Parashat Behar, which is this week's parasha, so I'm going to open it up in a second, says in the 7th month. You don't need it to say in the 7th month. You know why you don't need it to say in the 7th month? Because it says B'Yom Kippurim. We already know the date of Yom Kippur. So why does it repeat and say 7th month? It doesn't need to. Let me show you the pasuk. Okay, open a new tab. Look at this pasuk. It says here, you should blast the sound of the shofar in the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, on Yom Kippur. Just say Yom Kippur. We already know what the date of Yom Kippur is because it says it elsewhere in the Torah. It says in Parashat Emor. It says in Parashat Pinchas. We know what day it is. So why do you need to say the 7th month? It's coming to teach you something about the 7th month. So let's read it. You didn't need to say in the 7th month. So why does it say in the 7th month? To equate all of the blasts of the 7th month, they should all be together. You get that? It says by Yom Kippur on Yovel, once every 50th years, it says you should do shofar. The Gemara says, okay, that's by Yovel. It's not by Rosh Hashanah, but it says 7th month. That's extra. It's a hekesh. Since it's extra, it's coming to teach you something. You blow the shofar in the 7th month. Anytime you're blowing something in the 7th month, shofar. That's how we're learning the first one, which means you learn from Yovel that on Yom Kippur you also blow the shofar. Yovel, it says the word shofar. Yovel, it says the 7th month. Coming to teach you that anytime you're blowing anything in the 7th month, shofar. Good? Good. So that's the first thing. Now we learn what it has to be with from Yovel. How do you know that you have to have a simple sound before it? How do you know you have to do a tekiah before? Talmud Omar, v'ha'avarta shofar teruah. Because it uses the word v'ha'avarta. V'ha'avarta means that you should, how do they translate it as? You shall make a proclamation with the blast of the shofar. V'ha'avarta means to come to pass. Laha'avor means to pass. So it says, and you should pass the shofar teruah. So it sounds like there's something you have to do even before the teruah. Because otherwise, it could have just said, v'titrau, or just, it should say, v'tariu b'shofar. But it says, v'ha'avarta, there's an extra word there. That extra word tells you that something has to come before the teruah. Who says that you should have a tekiah afterwards? Talmud Omar, ta'aviru shofar, because it says the word ta'aviru afterwards. Again, I'm going to show this to you because it's this week's parasha. Look at this week's parasha. It says, "V'ha'avarta shofar teruah." You should come to pass. You should. Here, how do they translate it as? And then you shall sound. This v'ha'avarta means you should sound the shofar with a teruah. Chodesh Shavi'i be'asur lechodesh, 7th month, 10th day. Yom Kippurim, on Yom Kippur, ta'aviru shofar b'chol aretzechem. And then he uses the word ta'aviru. Make a sound. You make it sound. Teruah, make a sound. That's what we're learning in this line, that you need to have a simple sound before it, a simple sound after it. Tekiah before, tekiah after. Where is this section taught? What section am I in? Rosh Hashana or Yovel? Sorry? Yovel. So we're going to again say, Ve'ein li ela b'Yovel. This only applies to Yovel. Rosh Hashana minayin. How do I know I take this and apply this rule that you need to have tekiah before and after by Rosh Hashana? Also, the same thing. We already made that link. Once you have that link, the laws that apply by Yovel are going to apply by Rosh Hashana also. She'ein Talmud Lomar. Oh, hold on. We're in the middle of a line. We're now flipping to 34a. She'ein Talmud Lomar b'chodesh HaShevi'i. The Torah didn't need to say the 7th month because I know from its Yom Kippur. Ma Talmud Lomar b'chodesh HaShevi'i. Why does it say the 7th month? She'yu kol teruot HaChodesh HaShevi'i zeh kazeh. So that all of the shofar blasts of the 7th month should all be uniform. Okay? The first thing we learn is, how do you know you have to, on Rosh Hashanah, how do you know it has to be shofar? The answer is because Yovel says shofar. And it also says the word Shavi'i, comes to teach you that all shofar blasts of the 7th month, all blasts of the 7th month should be shofar, extending it to Rosh Hashanah too. Next thing is tekiah before and after. You learn it from the section of Yovel, because it says v'ha'avarta and it says ta'aviru. You're blowing a sound, making a teruah, blowing a sound. So that means you need to have simple before, simple after, meaning tekiah before, tekiah after. It says it by Yovel, but you link it to Rosh Hashanah, which means by Rosh Hashanah blast, you also need to have a tekiah before and after. One more thing that I'll come to you. And now the next thing that we need to learn is uminayin le'shalosh shel shalosh shalosh. And now how do you know that you need to do 3 sets of 3? Because all you told me now is that I need to have 1 set of 3. You have a teruah, preceded and followed by a tekiah. But how do I know I need to do that 3 times? Talmud Lomar, because it says that you need to blow the shofar. It says the word teruah 3 times in the Torah. V'ha'avarta shofar teruah. That's in this week's parasha about Yovel. Shabbaton zichron teruah. That was last week's parasha. That was Parashat Emor, talking about Rosh Hashanah, that it's a day of blast. And Yom Teruah Yelachem, this is in Parashat Pinchas, the pasuk that we looked at, that Onkelos translated as Yom Yevava. It says Teruah 3 times in the Torah. Once by Yovel, twice by Rosh Hashanah. 3 total. Once Yovel, twice by Rosh Hashanah. Uminayin liten et ha'amur shel zeh bazeh v'shel zeh bazeh. Okay, but why do you say I need to do 3? It says once by Yovel, twice by Rosh Hashanah. How do you get to 3 sets of 3? The answer is we already went through this. Talmud Omar Shevi'i le'gzera shava. It's coming to connect Rosh Hashanah and Yovel by using the word Shevi'i. Since it uses the word Shevi'i, it links these 2 sections, and when it links these 2 sections, that means whatever is done in one is done in the other. If it says it once here and twice here, what we learn from that is add them up 3 times total. Okay, we're not done. There's a lot of flow to go, but yes, I'll open up for questions. Yes.
Did it say that we're the 2 days of honey flow shofar? What were we learning earlier that like they're different? They're just like different animals' horns, and like one's accompanied by trumpets and one's like accompanying trumpets. They have
Okay. Yeah, so very good question. Andrew's question is, we've learned before that the way you blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah is different than the way you blow the shofar on Yom Kippur. Now, what we ended up seeing was that there was actually, I believe, a three-way machloket. One opinion says that it should be shel Yael Pashut, shel Ayil Kafuf. How on Rosh Hashanah it should be a bent ram's horn, whereas on Yovel it should be a straight ibex horn. And we spoke about it being bent and being straight, and I showed you some videos back then. So there we saw some differences, which you're absolutely correct. But what is not different, and what we're learning out for them to be the same, is that it should be a shofar. Because the fact that it says Shavi'i is linking, is that word Shavi'i is an extra word. It didn't need to be there. By Yovel, all it needs to say is on Yom Kippur. You don't need to tell me the date of Yom Kippur. So the fact that it says it is an extra word. Chazal explained to us that it's an extra word because it's coming to link it to the other blasts of the 7th month. And it's telling you that there are some connections. There are 3 connections that we're saying. The 3 connections are, number 1, that it's shofar. Number 2, that you need to have tekiah before and after. And number 3, that you need to have 3 sets of it. And those are the links that you need to have both of these. Because Yovel is the one that says shofar. Yovel is the one that indicates you need to have tekiah before and after. But if you want to get me 3 sets, I need 2 from Rosh Hashanah, 1 from Yovel. So I need to put those 2 together. And it's all linked because of the fact that it has this extra word Shavi'i. So you're pointing out that there are some differences. Correct, there are some differences. But right now, this is what Chachamim are saying are the similarities. We're not going to go through those differences. But yeah, and that was a machloket, by the way. If I recall, there's other opinions that say no, they should actually be the same. They are going to be similar. You have the option to do the same. But yes, you're absolutely correct. There are differences that exist, but not with these. Not with these. This is the connection. Okay? Good? Very good question. I love it. You're doing review clearly. Okay, there's one thing that we changed here. So the Gemara just quickly we'll look into it. But hold on a second. Before we do that, HaKetzad. So what is the total of the formula? After I told you everything, Shalosh Shehen Tesha. You need to do 3 sets that equal to 9 total. Shi'ur Tekiah Teruah. And now we're quoting, this is the finale, the last line of the Braita that we opened up our Gemara discussion about. Remember, we quoted a Braita that I put here on the chart, that a Shi'ur of a Tekiah is a Teruah, and the Shi'ur of a Teruah is 3 Shavarim. This Braita is what we're quoting right now. We've quoted it in completion. Shi'ur Tekiah Teruah. The Shi'ur of a Tekiah is like a Teruah. The Shi'ur Teruah Kishlosha Shavarim, and the Shi'ur of a Teruah is like 3 Shavarim, like we already spoke about. This opinion is saying Shavarim, the intermediate ones, the 3 longer ones. I have a depiction here I want to show on the screen. Can you see the screen? Yeah, you can see it. This is them showing. Yeah, you can see the top one is a Tekiah. It's just a simple line. Shivarim is 1, 2, 3, and Teruah is 9 tiny dots, the smallest sound that you can make. Okay? Good? Good. Andy, question for you, Andy. What is a Hekesh? Hekesh. Okay, what is a Gezerah Shava?
Is by the same word applies in 2 different contexts.
Very good.
Here that we do an exegesis.
Very good, very good. So you have the same word taught in 2 places, so you could create a link between them, and you could start learning one to the
What
other.
is a Hekesh? Sorry,
So Gezerah Shava is the same word in 2 sections. You connect them. Hekesh is the same section, has 2 different words. But since you have these 2 concepts taught together, it's really the word that the art school would use is a juxtaposition. Since they are juxtaposed one next to the other, then you make a connection between these concepts. So if I teach you 2 different concepts next to each other, you can learn out one to the other. And if you learn 2 identical words in different sections, then you could also connect one to the other. Okay, so we have been saying that you connect Shofar of Rosh Hashanah, or really Rosh Hashanah to Yovel. And how have we been doing it? Which mechanism have we been using? The Gemara has been using the word Hekesh up until the last one. It's saying there's an extra word Shevi'i. Since there's an extra word Shevi'i, because it says in the 7th month, you didn't need to tell me that. So what it's coming to do is it's coming to say how this is connected to the other one. So this is not using Gezerah Shava. We're not invoking Gezerah Shava. We're only saying that it's quoted, the word Shevi'i is extra here. So we're going to connect Yovel to other places of the 7th month. But the last section of the Mishnah says Gezerah Shava, Shevi'i, Shevi'i. It also says Shevi'i there. It's invoking a different rule. Why did you all of a sudden, you have a flow of your Braita. Your Braita is having connections between Rosh Hashanah and Yovel. 3 sets of connection. Connection number 1 is that both of them are going to be a shofar and not a trumpet, for example. It can't be a metal trumpet. It has to be a shofar of an animal. That's the connection number 1. Why? It says Hekesh of Shevi'i, because it uses the extra word Shevi'i. The next thing you learn is you need to have Tekiah before and Tekiah after. How do you know? You know that by Yovel. How do you apply that to Rosh Hashanah? The Gemara again says Hekesh, because it uses the extra word Shevi'i. And then the last thing the Gemara wants to do is says, and how do you know you need to have 3 sets of it? Because it says the blowings twice in Rosh Hashanah, once in Yovel, and the Gemara says, okay, but how do you add that up? How do you know to add the 2? It says Gezerah Shava, Shevi'i and Shevi'i. So the Gemara is going to say, you're making these connections between these 2 sections. What's your what methodology, what tool are you using? It doesn't really matter because you make the connection, but it's just saying, why are you not consistent? If you have a Hekesh, use a Hekesh. If you have a Gezerah Shava, use a Gezerah Shava. Why did you switch in the middle? The Gemara now is just going to ask on that line, okay? Hi Tana, the author of this Braita, Meikara Maitila Behekesha. Initially, he was learning out the connections between Rosh Hashanah and Yovel from a Hekesh, which means there's an extra word Shevi'i in the Yovel section, so I'm now going to expand it to other cases of the 7th month. Behashta, but in the last section of the Braita, Maiti la b'gzerah shava, he quotes it as a gezerah shava. It says the word Shevi'i twice. What does that mean? So hachi kaman, this is what he means to say. Ilav gezerah shava. If I didn't have a gezerah shava, which means if you didn't have the same word in both places, then I could have done it with a hekesh, as I did the first time and I did the second time. I didn't need to have identical words in each section. I could have done it without it. But now that I have the gezerah shava, that the word shevi'i is actually used twice, so that's a stronger one. I'll use that. Okay. You have a confused face. It's not so clear why the Gemara is even doing this. What is clear from the Gemara is that a gezerah shava is stronger. If you have, and like now you have to say, okay, so what exactly are the implications of this? And that I'm going to say is beyond the scope of this class, because it's more detailed of, if I were to learn something through a gezerah shava, or if I were to learn something through a hekesh, what difference would it make? And we're not talking about under normal circumstances. Maybe it would only make a difference if it comes to, goes at odds or at a conflict of something else, and then you could start taking a priority. Maybe gezerah shava here is stronger than something else there. Fine. What the Gemara now is saying is that I have the hekesh, and I could use the hekesh, which is an easier tool to use, and I would have been fine with that. But now, at the end of the Braita, I say, but I actually have a gezerah shava, so I'm going to use that because that's stronger. Okay? Again, I wouldn't worry too much about this. I remember I was listening to one of the Shurim, Rabbi Leibowitz. At the end, he was saying how a little bit unclear here why the Gemara is showing the preference of one over the other. But it could be that if something is a gezerah shava, it's stronger. That's clear from the flow of the Gemara that gezerah shava is stronger. What practical difference does it make? I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but it's basically saying that if you have a stronger tool, you use it. But even if I don't have the stronger tool, I could defend my hekesh. I could defend my connection with the hekesh. That's basically what it's saying. It's a one-sided comparison. He says that's enough. And now that I have a two-sided comparison, I'll use that too. He brought both to tell you that I have a very strong, defensible proof. Okay? Good. Question? Question?
Again, what the hekesh was just the line instead.
Okay. The hekesh is as follows.
It was two ideas.
By Yovel,
put together.
you have a section there's a section that's teaching about a concept, and related to it, it throws in a word. Or throws in a concept, throws in an idea, puts it next to this. Okay? The proximity matters. When it comes to hekesh, our school word is juxtaposition, which means they're next to each other. The section of Yovel has a word in that section of Shavi'i. That word Shavi'i now teaches you that this Yovel shofar blasts are going to be uniform across all shofar blasts of the 7th month. Because it says Shavi'i here, 7th month, so that means what you're going to do on the Yovel is what you do on any time you blow the shofar in the 7th month, including on Rosh Hashana. Now, how would you use Gezerah Shavah? You wouldn't say, well, since this section has this word Shavi'i, so that means it's going to be the same as other Shavi'i. Gezerah Shavah is saying the word Shavi'i was also in the section of Rosh Hashana, and now I invoke Gezerah Shavah. For all intents and purposes, the word could have been exactly. It could have been some other word of 10. It could have been the word 10, for example. It says the word 10, the 10th of the month here, and the 10th of the month there, so you're going to make a connection. For argument's sake. It doesn't matter what the word is, because you have the Gezerah Shavah. Hekesh is saying you put the two concepts next to each other, so you learn one after the other. The Gezerah Shavah is stronger. Gezerah Shavah is stronger. You have a Gezerah Shavah and you have a Hekesh. The Braita first uses Hekesh, then says, and I even have a Gezerah Shavah, so I don't even need the Hekesh. Okay. Good. Whew. Everyone with me. The connection of Rosh Hashanah is to which section? Section of Yovel. And we learn out 3 connections between them. Now we're going to learn these 3 connections out from a different section, Parashat Ba'alotcha. Parashat Ba'alotcha tells us how the Jewish people are supposed to travel. And when they would travel and it would be time for them to go, what would they do? They'd blow the shofar. There'd be times of war. They'd blow the shofar. Sorry, they wouldn't blow the shofar. They would blow the trumpets. Chatzotzrot. Let's look at the section quickly. Let's open up this tab. Open in the window. This section tells us here. Hashem told Moshe saying, make for yourself 2 silver trumpets. Silver, which means it's made out of metal. Silver. It's not coming from an animal's head. See, it's different. Mikshat ta'aseh you hammer it out. It's metal. And you could use it to call the people, to gather them when you need them, and also to travel. And you should do Tekiah with them. So everyone will gather at the tent of meeting in the Mishkan. If you blow it once, the leaders come. If you do a teruah, the people that are encamped in the east, they start traveling. If you do a second teruah, then the people that are living in the south shall travel. You do a teruah and then they go. And when you want to gather the people, you should do a tekiah, but don't do a teruah. Giving them, this is what's called Morse code, right? I do different things, and based on what I do, you're going to know what to do. If I do this, it means travel. If I do this, it means gather. If I do that, it means the leaders come. Right? You just have to listen. Whatever sound you hear, that's when you come. Etc. Etc. Who should do it? The Kohanim do it. And whenever you're fighting a war, when you're going into the war, you should blow the chatzotzrot. Right? Etc. And on your holidays, you should blow the chatzotzrot when you're bringing the korbanot. This whole section has to do with the chatzotzrot. Everything we just did by equating Rosh Hashanah to Yovel and making all those connections The next opinion is going to make it all connected to this section. And all of those things we learned from Yovel, he instead is going to learn it out from Chatzotzrot, from the trumpets. Let's see it. The Haitana, this other opinion, he is going to connect Rosh Hashanah from a Gezerah Shava to the Midbar. Why? The Tanya, as it says in the Braita, Utkatem Teruah. You shall blow a teruah. Now you pay attention to the words. Utekatem is a word of, what's the shoresh? Of a tekiah. But then it says you should do a teruah. So it sounds like you should blow a teruah, but it uses two different words. Tekiah b'fnei atzma, uteruah b'fnei atzma. That means there's two types of things going on here. Because when it says utkatem teruah, it's saying you should do a tekiah and a teruah. You need to do two separate things. Ata omer tekiah b'fnei atzma, uteruah b'fnei atzma. Hold on a second. Is that true? You're telling me it's two separate things. Oh, I know that tekiah uteruah achati. Maybe it's just one. Maybe tekiah is the verb of blowing a teruah. Utkatem teruah, and you should blow a teruah. Maybe that's all it is. But remember, one of the rules was when you're trying to gather the people, in that case, only do a tekiah. Don't do a teruah. What does that mean? That there's different sounds. Because based on the Morse code, based on the rules, it's saying if you're traveling, do this. If you're gathering, do this. When you're trying to gather, do a tekiah. Don't do a teruah. But when you're doing that, do a teruah. So it's basically telling you are there separate sounds. So the first thing that we learned from that section is that tekiah and teruah is different, and you need to do both. Okay, now that I know I have to do both, but how do I know that I have to make it like a sandwich? To do a tekiah before and a tekiah after? Who said that? You proved to me that there's differences. But who says I have to do tekiah, teruah, tekiah? So that's the next thing. Because look what it says. It says utkatem teruah. First do a tekiah, then do a teruah. So you know that the intro, then the tekiah. Okay, but who said about the outro? Who said he has to do a tekiah afterwards? Talmud Omar teruah yitkeu. He uses the word teruah first, and then he uses the word tekiah. So you see, tekiah has to be before it, and tekiah has to be after it. Okay. But even that, there's another opinion that says, no, you don't need to do it based on the flip of the words. You could learn it from the fact that it says, Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Berakah, Omer, Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Berakah says, Eino tzarich, you don't need to learn it from there, Omer, because it said, Utkatem teruah shenit. You should blow a teruah a second time. Now, if you're following the flow of the Pesukim, you don't need to tell me a second time, because it said, you do it once and the people in the east go. You do it a second time and the people in the south go. You don't need to use the word shenit. The word shenit is extra, because what could it have said? You blow it, people in the east go. Blow it, people in the south go. I know that there's like a sequence here. But when you use the word shenit, it's an extra word. Tamud omar shenit. I didn't need to say it. Tamud omar shenit. So why do you need to say shenit a second time? Ze bana ab. It's coming to build a principle for you. Shekol makom shenemar teruah. That anytime he uses the word teruah, tehet tekiah sheniya la. That there has to be something that's second to it. Meaning you blow a tekiah, there will always be a second. There will always be a secondary sound to a tekiah. That is a hekesh. Exactly. Very good. That's a hekesh. There's an extra word here. This extra word is coming to teach you something. It's coming to teach you that when you have a tekiah, it needs to have a secondary sound after it also. But this whole section is talking about what? The midbar. What meaning? The trumpets, as they're in the desert and they're traveling through the desert. What does this have to do with Rosh Hashanah? The Rosh Hashanah minayin. How do I know that I can connect this to Rosh Hashanah? Talmud Omar teruah l'gzera shava. This section uses the word teruah. This section of Rosh Hashanah uses the gzera shava. So I'm now going to say the fact that by the midbar you need to do tekiah, teruah, tekiah. Once I have this gzera shava rule, I'm going to apply it by Rosh Hashanah also. Any tekiah, teruah, tekiah. Okay, we're not done. V'shalosh teruot ne'emru b'Rosh Hashanah. It says teruah 3 times by Rosh Hashanah. Shabbaton zichron teruah, that's in Parashat Emor. Yom teruah, that's in Parashat Pinchas. Ve'avarta shofar teruah, that's in Parashat Behar. That's actually about Yovel. Ushtei tekiyot lechol achat ve'achat. And each of those three need to have a tekiah before and after. Matzinu lemedim. So the final conclusion is shalosh teruot. You need to have 3 teruot. V'shesh tekiyot and 6 tekiyot. Ne'emru b'Rosh Hashana, related to Rosh Hashana. Shetayim midivrei Torah. 2 are actually in the words of the Torah about Rosh Hashana. Ve'achat midivrei Sofrim. And that third is coming through the connection. Divrei Sofrim is our sages connecting it to the section of Yovel. So twice it says by Rosh Hashanah, a third time based on a connection that our rabbis give us. Shabbaton zichron teruah ve'avarta shofar teruah midivrei Torah yom teruah yelachem l'talmudo haba. Okay, at this point, I think this might be something that we'll have to. Well, we're going to do this, and we're going to come to review it next time. But let's just finish this up until this line, because we're almost there. So he's coming to say you have these 2 sections from the Torah, and you have a third one. You have a third one that's more coming from the rabbis, and now that one of them is coming to teach you something else also. Yom Teruah Yelachem is actually coming to teach you something else. The Talmudo Ba. I'm learning something else from that phrase. What are you learning from that phrase? My Talmudo Ba. What am I? Sorry, did I skip? Yeah, I skipped a little bit. Sorry. Yeah, Yom Teruah Yelachem, the Talmudo Ba. That line of Yom Teruah Yelachem, I'm going to learn something else from it. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar Rabbi Natan. Another opinion says no. Achat min divrei Torah. One of them is from the Torah. Ushtai min divrei Sofrim. 2 are learned out from the rabbis connecting it. Ve'avarta shofar teruah. The line of ve'avarta shofar teruah. That's the one that I learned from the Torah. Shabbaton zichron teruah yom teruah yelachem l'talmudo haba. But the other 2 that it's actually talking about Rosh Hashanah is coming through the connection that the rabbis made between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah, and it's coming to teach you something else also. My l'talmudo haba. What else is it coming to teach you? It's coming to teach you mibai. Bayom v'lo balayla. Because what does it say? It says Yom Teruah Yelachem. Yom v'lo layla. When do we blow the shofar? During the daytime. You cannot. If someone blew the shofar at nighttime, do they fulfill the mitzvah? The answer is no. Why? Because of this. Because it's a Yom Teruah Yelachem. So you see how this is all layered drashot. In the middle of these drashot, what we're saying is, by the way, from that line of Yom Teruah, Teruah is counting as one of the 3, but also use the word Yom. For the word Yom, I'm going to learn something else from the fact that this is the word Yom. What am I learning from the fact that it says Yom? The mitzvah of shofar only applies during the day. And this whole chain connection is going to say that all of these things are all going to have the rule that has to be during the day only. Amazing. But the other opinion says, I'm not going to learn that it can only be done on the day from this line. I have to learn it from somewhere else. Where does he learn it from? Because it says it from Yom Kippurim. Okay, so there it says Yom. Okay, so then the Gemara is going to say, but if you're going to do that, you know what? I want to stop here. Because we're going back and forth. It's a bit complicated, and I think this could benefit from a chart. Mr. David Dalmani is going to help me make a chart. But let's just quickly recap, because we didn't even speak about the thing in the middle. Thing in the middle about the different opinions of Shivarim and Teruah and the different things. That'll be in the later daf. And there's going to be a lot that we're going to have to get into. There's a lot of questions that we're going to have to cover in the next couple of pages. Questions that we're going to do, and then I want to do a quick recap. Questions that we're going to have to do is, how many total blasts do we have to do? So you tell me, how many total blasts? Someone tell me, how many teruot do I have to do on Rosh Hashanah? How many teruot do I have to do on Rosh Hashanah? Teruah is the thing in the middle. 3. How do you know 3?
Because it either mentions it twice for Rosh Hashanah and once for Yovel.
It mentions it twice for Rosh Hashanah and once for Yovel. That's it. Even the Midbar one needs to use that. And it says twice Teruah. The word Teruah is used twice for Rosh Hashanah, once for Yovel, and you make a connection. You make a connection because the word Shavi'i, either it's a Hekesh or Gezeh Shavah, 3 times. Okay, that's 3. Now, That should equal to 9. Why does that equal to 9? Shalosh. You need to have Tekiah before it and Tekiah after it. How do you know you didn't have Tekiah before it or Tekiah after it? You're going to have to either look at the Yovel section or at the Chatzotzrot section, the trumpet section. If you look at the Yovel section, it says Varta Shofar and then Ta'aviru Shofar. It's saying that before and after you're doing the Teruah, you're making a sound. So that, you learn it by Yovel, that you need to have a Tekiah before and after. If you learn it from the trumpet section, because it says, Katem Teruah, Teruah Yitkeu, or Teruah Shenit, there's different ways of learning it, either because it says with Katem Teruah, we know there's two separate sounds, Tekiah first, Teruah next, and then in the outro, it's either because it says Teruah Yitkeu, or because the word Shenit. Shenit means there has to be something secondary to it. Point is, you learn that you need to have Tekiah before it or after it. So you need to have 3 teruot, because it says it 3 times in the Torah, with a pshuta before it after, meaning a tekiah before it after, that gets you to 9. And what I already told you and what we already exposed ourselves to tonight is that there's 2 opinions of what a teruah is. What are the 2 opinions of what teruah is? Genuche ganach, it's a sigh, or it's a whimper. It's much smaller. It's like either or one of those 2. And if you say it's one of those 2 and it's all learned out, Sisra's mom. Why do we talk about Sisra's mom? Because the Torah says Shofar, Rosh Hashana is a Yom Teruah, the day of blast. What does the word Teruah mean? Where do you look? Unkulus, Targum Unkulus, translation. How does he translate Teruah? Yevava. What does Yevava mean?
We don't know.
We're going to look somewhere else in Tanakh. Where are we going to look? The book of Shoftim, chapter 5. And there, what does it say? Line 28, what does it say? It says that Sisra is waiting for her boy to come home. And it says, Sisra. She was doing something. And what was she doing? We are, based on context, saying that either she was sighing, like, hey, like that, or he's gone. One of those 2 things. So then we know that we have a machloket of our Mishnah, either it's Ganuchei Ganach or Yelulei Alav. It's either the intermediate, what we call Shvarim, or it's Teruah, which is the small one. So I'm going to show you how later on in the Gemara, we're going to see that could actually be a combo. So you need to do 3, with 3 before, 3 after, that totals to 9. And in the one that's in the middle, we're not sure what it is, so you need to have 3 versions of this, so that ends up being 27. And you could even count it as 30 if you count the combo. If you count it as 2 separate ones, that gets you to 30. How many blasts of shofar do we do on Rosh Hashana? 101. It's a lot of extra. You only need to do 30. Why? Satan. Yeah, I guess. That is part of it. Rabbi Yitzchak asks, why do we do it before and why do we do it after? That's the Gemara that Rabbi Yitzchak tells us. Very good. But that would be just before and after. You could get away with doing 60 or maybe 90. Why do you push it up to 101? So I gotta leave some cliffhanger. I'm not gonna answer you tonight, but Hashem will answer it next time. Based on Tosfot, why we get to 101. There's a lot more that we have to discuss, but these are all the connections. This is a great exercise of intertextuality. We don't do this much. We haven't done this much in Tekiah Rosh Hashana, where it says this here, it says that here. You learn 2 from here, 1 from there. It uses the word combo. It says over here, you do this, you connect to this. Gzera Shava, Hekesh over here. It says the word Shenit. All of these machlokot. We actually don't have this many Gemara. This is like the crux of like drashot of going back and forth. I would highly recommend you try to go through this in your mind. This is like a good thing to review in your homework. Teruah 3 times in the Torah. And you need to have a Tekiah before it or after it. You can learn that once from Yovel or from Chatzotzrot. And in the Chatzotzrot, there's 2 opinions as to the outro. And then based on certain things, you apply it to everything in that 7th month. So that gets you to this total number. We also learned one more thing I didn't mention is the fact that it's even a shofar. It doesn't use the word shofar by Rosh Hashana. Just use the word teruah. I don't know, it has to be a shofar. Also, because it says about Yovel and you have that connection. 7th month, but should be. There's a lot of very exciting things. The next couple of daf we need to talk about. Where are we up to? We're up to Lamed Dalet Amud Aleph now. We have a daf to go. We have Lamed Dalet Amud Aleph, Amud Bet, and Lamed Hey, and that's it. We're done. We're rounding the end of the Masechet. Be'ezras Hashem, I think maybe 2 more classes, maybe 3, and we should be done with the Masechet. This is like the most important discussions about Rosh Hashanah. There's a few other things that we're going to learn about the timing. We didn't talk about the timing tonight, except for the Mishnah talks about the timing. We're going to talk about the timing also. How long each one has to be, how long the Tekiah has to be, how long the Teruah has to be, how long does the Tekiah of Tashat and Terat, are they the same length as the Tekiah of Tashrat? Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to speak about these things as well. Get into Shulchan Aruch, get into the halachot as well. Okay? Any questions before we close up? Okay, have a good night. Be'ezras Hashem, see you all next week.
Thank you.